Let's jump to the issues. The president's last address to Ghanaians, I believe you followed it. What
Yes.
were some of the key things you picked from the address by His Excellency the President?
Well, given the fact that he addresses us regularly, especially when he wants to extend lockdowns or the restrictions that exist, or when he wants to lift them or increase them, it can be understood that he may want to address us. But he did very little in that regard on this occasion because he dealt more, especially with only one aspect, which was the extension of the restrictions that exist, especially with regard to gatherings. So that was, for some of us, the highlight of his speech in terms of things that really concern COVID-19. The rest of it appeared to be a political speech on a political platform, and we find that very unfortunate. The president entered strictly into politics on a platform which has international viewing, and people want real detail with regard to what is immediate and what could be dealt with COVID-19. And if there isn't much to say, you don't say very much and you move on. But to latch onto it, the construction of hospitals, which is impossible to do in 1 year, and not even talk about the existing hospitals that you have not completed, not to talk about the existing promises you have not been able to achieve. And let's not forget that we have 3 years and 5 months almost into the administration of President Kufuor. So we are looking at basically 5 months or 5.5 months to the end of his tenure.
Okay.
And it becomes totally impossible to understand how he came about this process, except for political reasons.
It's interesting you describe, apart from the 2 years extension of the ban, all other things he said as being political. Now, what I'm trying to understand is how the building of 88 hospitals would amount to political talk. How the advice to use nose masks would amount to political talk.
No, nose mask, forgive me. I was talking in terms of what matters, because the nose mask issue, a document had already come out from the Ministry of Health through the minister indicating, so he was only reinforcing what the Minister of Health had already said, making it compulsory for us to use nose masks. So it could have been dealt with without him actually coming to address us. But the lifting or removal of restrictions is something that he has always done himself. And so the fact that he was going to continue with certain restrictions may have been a justification, perhaps, of him coming to address us. So it's not that everything he said. I'm saying if you want to see what he specifically does when he addresses us, which matters to the Ghanaian public, is to deal with restrictions, removal, or increasing them. And also, because now the statistics in terms of how many people have it and the basis, it's all there. So it was a rehash of what he already says to us. But the mask is very important. But as for the issue of hospitals, it had no place in that speech. Absolutely no place. Because one, you haven't even been able to complete what exists for 3.5 years. No matter what you say was wrong or not wrong with contracts, as I heard the Minister of Information saying, Kojo Nkrumah, is 3.5 years down the line. And we've started paying interest on some of these loans that we took to build the hospitals, and the hospitals are not standing. So what are we talking about? You haven't spoken about uncompleted hospitals that exist, and you are going to build 94 new hospitals plus infections in 1 year? Please.
Now, is it not a matter of looking at the model of the projects the president is talking about in terms of the kind of infrastructure we are talking about? Because you are seeking to paint the picture that between 5 and 5.5 months, it's impossible to build these structures, even if we do have the funding. Is it not a matter of the type of hospitals they want to build?
Please. We have a hospital in Dodua, which the WHO has looked at. and told us that this is a model hospital for hospitals in Africa. What model are you going to use? Are you saying you're going to downgrade the type of hospitals we have already started building? We already have what people consider to be the model type hospital. Not us saying it. WHO came and saw it and said, yes, this model should be used in Africa. In every African country, it's a good model and a good type style of hospital. In any event, how do you build 94 hospitals? Some are regional, 6. There are 88 are what's it called? Districts. You haven't got the funding, because the funding is key to you building. Your finance minister has said to us that it will take us 2 to 3 years to recover from COVID-19. He puts an article in the paper where he's literally lamenting about the issues that have cropped up in our finances because of COVID-19, and how the rest of the world talking about lost businesses, lost enterprise. It is a global issue. And you are talking of 94 hospitals in 1 year. You haven't seen the funding, don't know where the funding is coming from. Now put that aside. You've promised 350 secondary schools to be done in 18 months the moment you came into office. We are 2 years, twice that amount. 3.5 years down the line, 18 months plus 18 months is 3 years, plus another 4 months. How many of those secondary schools have you built? What model did you use? Because there was an E-block model, we're not using it. And what model and how many of that 350 secondary schools have you built? So we are not just, it is impossible. The fact that you go and dig the ground, how many, one district, one village, one dam. Was it not the same minister who said the money they gave us, the kind of dam that we're talking, so we built what we can with the money? So now you're going to build any hospital with whatever money you have and call it a district hospital, when we already have a standard that has been set. One, what's it called? District 1 factory. How many factories? And how many of them were existing factories? And how many of them are new factories?
All right. Now let's go back to the issue you were raising about the uncompleted medical facilities spread across the country. Can you give us an idea, the numbers in terms of these hospitals and their spread?
There are quite a few, and they were all at different stages of building. So the NMS group had 7 or 8 hospitals to build. They had finished Dodoa. They were 90% in terms of 2 or 3 of the hospitals, and there were about 40 to 50% in the other 2 or 3. One of them, they had changed site 3 times, which was affecting even the cost. The one in Western region, there was land given. They went to site. They started. There became a land dispute. They left that land, went to another portion of land given. When they started work, there was dispute from the. So even when we were leaving office, there was even an issue arising from whether or not we would even leave that hospital in the Western region, because the traditional rulers and the assemblies and the landowners were always in conflict when we wanted. So a lot of money was lost in that project, and it is there. That's why even this current government cannot say that it is the model or it was an issue that was created by our own acquisition of land issues and the fact that disputes were raised on that land. That's why that NMS particular hospital was creating problems. So there were issues which, with regards to the contract, that had nothing to do with even the type of contract it was. It was because of our land dispute. And land is a very important issue in this country. So you take the Eurojet, same. There were issues with regard to the access in Upper East region, the hospital that was being dealt with there. But they had brought in the equipment, and we had to spend a lot of time looking at the financial model that had been left under the Kufuor administration, because the model became an issue when the Arab Springs took place. This was a contract that was done before the Arab Springs, The money was coming from an Egyptian national. Once the Arab Springs took place, it affected the financial model. So we spent almost 2 years restructuring and trying to get a different financial model before that work could commence. So there are good, cogent reasons why, and that is why nobody has been arrested for financial loss, because these were issues to do with contractual and acts of God, which nobody could actually say were wrong.
So then, Mr.
You've had
Segbefia,
3.5 years to sort it out, and you have not done any of those things, because the Ashanti Regional Hospital should have been finished by now. The military hospital should have been finished by now. Within a year, and in the case of NMS, you would have finished those within 4 months of coming into office. We are 3.5 years down the line. They haven't been finished. You have finished one, which was in Upper West. You have done the Ghanaians Quality Hospital, which was also finished just soon after they came into office, because everything was in place before they came. But anything which they had to put their hand on to finish, they left for 3.5 years. That is not acceptable.
These cogent reasons you give us, that which has to do with, land acquisition, the problems with the traditional authorities, and then the bit about funding for one or two of these projects from the, Arabian partners. Could these problems not have been the justifiable reasons why the government is also delaying in touching these projects?
No, because we had gone far in resolving them. This Arab Spring issue had been resolved. The money was now there. Just get on with the project. The NMS issue was one hospital. The rest could have finished. They had 3 which were going to finish within 6 months. Why didn't they finish them? They stopped all projects saying they were going to look at the contracts. And we have been looking at this contract for 3.5 years.
Now, let me find out this. Forgive my appreciation of the dynamics when it comes to, being a former minister and then being a minister. With all these concerns that you're raising, has there been an effort to find out from the present administration as to why these facilities are not being continued? And what's been the response?
Which project was easily continued under President Akufo-Addo? Even the commissioning of Terminal 3, has it been done? We are using the airport, but has it been commissioned? If you commission it, you give credit to President Mahama, so you don't commission. Anything that you give credit to President Mahama, you don't want to do. And so what reason do I have to go back to you for? It's very obvious. It's as clear as daylight. The obvious reason is that every project was scrutinized and looked at. The only issues that could not be stopped were those that were too far ahead. But anything that was 90% below, they stopped. And they never finished. The Tepa Hospital, how many times has the chief not made a request that they come and finish it?
You spoke about some form of auditing of contracts and the fact that that's why people have not been arrested or being prosecuted. Could you tell us whether in the process of the auditing of these contracts, at any point, you as a former minister, you were invited by any of the state institutions for questioning?
No.
You've not?
No. All right. Yeah, I'm telling you that it is not. Look, these are contractual issues. It is not anything to do with fraud or no. There are clauses in contracts which mean that people envisage that there can even be difficulties with the executions. But why are we answering all these questions? In 3.5 years, what has the MPP built? What? Well, I mean, you tell me, in 3.5 years, what have they built? The schools, buildings that they are supposed to have built, if they have built 10, come and tell us we have built 10, and we will ask you, where are the 340? You said you were going to do it in 18 months. The same way you have said that you are going to build 88 or 94 hospitals in 1 year. You said the same with schools in 18 months. We have doubled the 18 months to 3 years. We've added 4 months. We are in April. And we are asking you, please, how many have you built? And nobody is answering the question. Now, why should we even think that you can build 88 hospitals in 1 year? Everybody is telling you that it's impossible. We know how contracts go. We know how buildings go. You can't give one contract to 8. You are not going to bring 88 companies to build 88 hospitals. You lose economies of scale. The cost will be too high. You will give maybe 10 to somebody, 8 to somebody. depending on their capacity. All this has to be looked at, considered before you go ahead. Where is the money coming from in a situation where we are struggling with funding at the moment? Our debt to GDP ratio is going up. We are looking at how we are going to even serving the loans we have. The IMF and World Bank has given us some moratorium on the loans, maybe 3 months. Repayment holiday. We are in a financial crisis. We also have a pandemic on our hands. Talk about how we are going to deal with it now. What are you talking about? 88 hospitals in 1 year.
So you don't think it's necessary at this time, considering the situation we are in, for the president to be talking about building new facilities in the first
place? If he wants to go and campaign, and he's doing a campaign, and he's on a campaign platform, and he says it, that is his prerogative. And people will decide whether, not when you are addressing the whole nation, all the international community, about what steps we are taking now to deal with COVID-19. And you are talking of an impossibility, which is clearly impossible. So now, even those of us who are being objective, we are talking about hospital. And tell me, in all this that he has said, we are in the middle of the pandemic. Their numbers are increasing in terms of the number of people who are getting sick. When is this 88 hospitals going to solve this current problem we are in?
If you were Minister of Health and the President was about delivering his speech last Sunday, and you were going to advise him on this matter, what would have been your top priorities for the President to tell Ghanaians?
I would have told the President that there was no need to address us at this stage. He should have sent out a communique indicating that the restrictions had been increased for a further 2 weeks. He had spoken to all the necessary agencies, and that was the position. And that I would have left it at that. If he was going to even address us just to encourage us and to reinforce us, then I would have let him stick to the script of dealing with the restrictions and dealing with the fact that now the face mask was mandatory under the Minister of Health thing, and talk about the guidelines for face masks, how to wear it, how to remove it, how to use it, disposal, and then I would have stopped there. That would have been what I would have advised him to do.
Now, the mention of face mask, I was going to end the conversation, but you mentioned face mask, and it brought to mind an issue we discussed this morning. We saw it in Daily Graphic about the FDA speaking about the ones we are using, the locally manufactured ones, and the fact that they don't actually protect us. They don't meet the standards, and that people would not have to go through the processes to get standardized, nose masks to sell out in the public domain. Now, people are raising concerns as to why government is not the one spearheading this with the standard, nose masks. What's your take on that?
My take is that everybody is looking at nose masks from the wrong, or not everybody, but a lot of people are looking at it from the wrong angle. The nose mask is not worn to protect you from the coronavirus. It is to protect others from you if you have the coronavirus. Why is it that they say if you sneeze into your sleep? Because they are trying to stop you from spreading. When you talk, paper comes out of your mouth. When you shout, it goes further. When you sneeze, it goes even further. So if you have a handkerchief in front of your mouth constantly, no vapor would leave. Any shouting you do, the distance will be very small. And when you cough, it cannot go as far because there is a handkerchief in front of your mouth, or your arm is now in front of your face, the sleeve. So you are not protecting yourself. You are protecting others from you because you do not wear the disease on your forehead. You can be there for 2 weeks without even showing a single symptom. Some people are even asymptomatic. So when we wear face masks, all we are doing, walking around with a handkerchief in front of our face, so vapor and shouting, vapor from shouting, if it could go 10 feet, will now go only 1 foot. If you think that you are wearing it so I won't get it, then that is where I agree that you have a problem. That's why everybody should wear it. Because if I wear it and I'm protecting you from me, but you are not wearing it, then I'm not protected. So if we are all wearing it, we are just all going to reduce the extent to which our vapor travels. And that is why I am a supporter of face masks always public.
Regardless of
Place,
whether it meets the standards or not.
no, but the standards must be met. There are guidelines given as to how, if you are going to manufacture one or when you are going to do one. Because if you have it in front of your face constantly, and even the fabric that you've used has dyes in it or whatever, it can have a negative effect on your health as well. So as for the standards, without a doubt, you need the standards. But when you add to that statement that it does not protect you, then I say no. It does not protect others from you. That is what I want to hear. And if it's done that way, then it gives, if not, if you want to protect people from you, then you might have to now give everybody professional face masks. And if you go into the professional face mask, then some of them last for only 8 hours, and you have to get a new one. They are not, you cannot wash them, they are not reusable. The function they perform is specific, and so you cannot use them again. Whereas with the ones which are you can wash them, you can use hot water, you can iron them, and you can use them again. And so I think that there's need for clarity on what can be used, how it can be used. That's why I said if the president had spent a lot more time educating us on that, it would have been time better spent looking at COVID-19 and re-emphasizing the policy of face masks rather than talking about hospitals.
Mr. Segbefia, let me live in the realms of, hypothetical situations. If you were a Minister of Health, would you have advised the president to lift the lockdown?
I would have asked the basis of the lifting of the lockdown. Because if the basis is now a financial economic one, and that is going to outweigh the science, that is a basis for lifting. If it is going to be based on just the science, then there are question marks. Because at the end of the day, we have not even gotten, it's now that the FDA is trying to approve rapid testing kits. And when you want to lift, you must be in a position to be doing mass testing in a way which would help you identify, treat, isolate, and treat, test, isolate, and treat the people that need who that need help. You don't have that position, and your figures were rising. Hadn't even gotten to the stage where day on day what the increases were, because you had a backlog of 18,000 which you hadn't cleared. Therefore, we said, look, it's premature because you don't even have enough data coming in sufficiently and dealing with it to be able to say that this is actually the position we are in Ghana. And that is why our position from a technical point of view was that it was premature. And therefore, once you had taken a lockdown, look at the guidelines from the WHO before you come out of it. We hadn't met many of those guidelines. And therefore, it's important. We should have continued for a little while, got our data in order, and cleared the backlog.
Mr. Segbefia, we are grateful you made time to speak to us this morning.
I'm grateful to you, Sammy. God bless and good morning to all.
Good morning to you too, sir. Mr. Segbefia, a former Minister of Health, na Yenino Edi in Komo.